Welcome to another episode of Dealmaker Nation, everyone. Guys, a couple months ago, we had the biggest celebrity we've ever had on the show, the one and only Tarek El Moussa. That show was absolutely incredible. It broke so many records on our show. I think it had the highest watch time. It had almost 10,000 views so far on YouTube. So it's been absolutely blowing up. But after the show, a lot of people were asking me, who's behind the scenes working? Who's the guy that is actually leading Tarek's team? Because, he's on TV all the time. He's recording TV shows. He's in front of the camera. There's got to be someone that is actually running the operation. So tonight we're bringing on the one and only Forrest Blackburn. Guys, Forrest Blackburn, the background that he has, the stories he'll tell you are just incredible. Like, if you ever want to go drinking with someone and hear some crazy stories, Forrest Blackburn is your guy. He grew Tarek's wholesaling business from $40,000 a month 4 months ago to over $1 million a month today. Okay, in just 4 months. That's insane. That just shows you how fast you can grow as a wholesaling business. Now, something interesting about Forrest, something that I think is going to make the show a little bit entertaining, is before he got into real estate, he was actually a little bit of a rock star. Okay, you see him there with Mariah Carey. You see him there with Ricky Phillips. He ran the band, of course, Forrest Blackburn, which was, I think, big in the 90s and early 2000s. He performed with some of the biggest rock stars. These are all former bandmates of his. Reeve Gabriel's, Ricky Phillips, Lita Ford, all these guys he performed with. So he's got some crazy stories. I'm sure we'll dive into a few of those tonight before we dive into the real important stuff, which is, of course, going to be real estate education. But guys, this is going to be an awesome, epic show. If you are struggling to get started, or you're already doing a couple $100,000 a month and you want to get to $1 million, tonight we're going to be talking about all of that. How he did it with pay-per-click, how he did it with building his team, everything that he did, we're going to be going into tonight. And make sure that in the comments, you're giving us questions, letting us know anything that we haven't covered that you think might be helpful for you. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube or not watching this on YouTube, make sure to go to Dealmaker Nation on YouTube and subscribe. So Forrest is going to be joining us in 1 second right after this. All right. Welcome to the show, Forrest. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
Excellent. So you're coming to us live from the one and only Los Angeles, California?
Yeah, we're here in Southern California, and here I am in the office. It's a busy day, so I'm glad to take some time to talk.
Awesome. So you have really been the driving force behind Tarek's massive growth in this wholesaling business. I want to talk to you about that and really dive into it. But before we do that, let's talk about your background, because you have the craziest background I've ever heard. So why don't you tell me a little bit about, I know you start off in music and theater, and then you transitioned over the years. So tell me about, what was it like growing up as a musician, as a childhood actor, and just walk us through a little bit of that.
I did acting when I was a kid, and into, I guess, pre-teen years and early teen years. Doing stuff with Disney and doing stuff on NBC and movies of the week and just little stuff. All throughout that time, I was touring and doing national theater and did a bunch of different shows and had a lot of fun doing that. But as I got older, I started really getting more gravitating towards music. I was really trying to be a successful actor, which later parlayed into sales. Right.
Yeah.
But I was really trying hard to be an actor. And at the same time, I was getting hired to come and do all these music gigs. So it finally dawned on me that, hey, I'm making money doing music and I'm trying to be an actor. So I just put everything over to music. Did that for a while. And then I went to Pepperdine, went to college and and was a normal guy for a while, and that just didn't fit. So I got back out into music and started a production company in Burbank, actually out of my home. I had a home studio. It was the first house I ever purchased. So that's really what got me into my first taste
Can
of
you tell people how old you were when you bought your first house?
Yeah, I was 19 and I paid cash.
19, guys. 19, and Forrest bought his first house for cash in California.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
insane.
I wish that I hung on to that house because it's worth like, I don't know, 3 times what I sold it for now. But
Probably.
you know, it is what it is, right? That's real estate.
Right.
So, I wish I would have had the mindset then that I have now. But yeah, that got me into music, and I started a production company, which turned into a record label. I was getting ready to say screw it to Southern California, where I was born and raised, and try to, you know, move on to other pastures. And I had a place lined up in New York I was going to move to, in Brooklyn Heights. And right before I left, I got a phone call that a band that I was following needed a new lead singer. They needed to replace their lead singer. So I went and met with them. That was 2002. So I met up with them, leather pants and all, and got the gig. And we started doing shows. We started touring. We were playing all up and down Sunset and all over Hollywood. And it was a lot of fun. And that's when the bug kind of bit me to do music. And I stuck with that for a long time.
Now, you've had some of the biggest rock musicians in rock history, period, as band members over the years.
Yeah.
Right. So can you tell us, can you share some of the names here?
Sure. So when the first record that we recorded, the producer that I had on that record, he had just got done producing a record for Ronnie Wood from Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
So he rolled out the red carpet and called in everybody that he knew, and we all sat down and we met, and I picked the guys that I liked the most, and we all got along really well. And my first bass player is Ricky Phillips, and Ricky, if you're watching, how's it going, buddy? There he is.
Yeah,
and you know, I was playing with guys that were very seasoned, right? They had huge careers, and they used to call me the kid. I remember Ricky and I were in the studio one night recording, and he got a phone call, and these are landlines, right? So he answered the phone, so he was ringing and interrupting, so he answered the phone, and he goes, "Hey, yeah, no, I'm here with the kid," and he goes, "Come over and say hi," and he flips it over to speakerphone, and it's Ted Nugent. So now I'm on the phone talking with Ted Nugent. He's like, "Oh, you're the kid," and you know, I think I was 22, 23, and a similar experience happened when we brought in Reeves Gabrels as lead guitar, and Reeves Gabrels, yeah, there he is, was
absolute legend.
David Bowie's Axeman for 17 years. So another very seasoned guy. And, you know, what I've always learned, and I had a manager when I was in acting, and she told me, she said, never go into an acting class where you're the best one, because you're not going to learn anything.
Yeah.
I've always carried that through. Any situation that I'm in, I always surround myself, or try to, with people that know more or have more experience. And it's not in all facets, but I think you always have to recognize what your weaknesses are, and then learn from others that have that as a strength. And having all of those really top musicians helped me be a better musician, but also kind of taught me the music business. And maybe that wasn't the right thing, because then I learned the music business is not really the business that I wanted to be in. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Had some big people, played with a lot of really cool cats.
So you're in your early 20s now. You have your own house that you bought with cash. You're playing with some of the biggest rock stars in the world, living the life. What happens next? Actually, before we move on to that, can you tell me what's your craziest celebrity story?
There's a lot of those. You know, you mentioned in the intro, and wow, what an intro, by the way. But you mentioned in the intro that if you want to go grab a drink, this guy's got crazy stories. Yeah, a lot of what I did back then was under the influence, and so people told me it was a great time, and I'm sure it was. But no, that breeds a lot of crazy stories, right? And the places that I used to, you know, kind of haunt in LA, it's, you know, that's kind of who you rub elbows with. And boy, crazy stories. There's a lot probably that I shouldn't share, but there's one that stands out that was memorable for me. I've kind of been a big Beatles nut my whole life. It's been a driving force for music, and I've got a bunch of collectibles, gold records, and all kinds of stuff. I actually got into an auction where I was bidding on the piano that John Lennon wrote Imagine on. I lost, but it was kind of fun to be in that bit. But so speaking of that, I was at a restaurant called Dantana's in West Hollywood, right next to the Troubadour. And we were getting ready to play at the Troub, and I was at Dantana's, and a gentleman that I knew, who's a long-time big-name record producer, was talking with Yoko Ono. And my friend said, go introduce yourself. And I said, well, I don't want to be that guy. And he saw me and recognized that I had a Beatles problem. And he called me over. And, when you shake hands with somebody and they never let go, she did that. And we stood there and talked to one another for, seemed like an eternity, but it was about 5 minutes. And it was really memorable just because of who she is and who she's known. And I couldn't stop thinking, this hand has shaken so many other hands that are just like my hand. So that was a pretty cool experience. Not a crazy experience, but a pretty cool one. Yeah.
Wow. And there's a lot more, I'm sure. About I don't know if we can share them all. I've heard some.
Yeah, I know you have.
We'll save those for another show.
Yeah.
We might get YouTube banned. Awesome. What's up, guys? We got Philip on. We got Garrett on. Tag. What's up, Tag?
What up, Tag?
Khalid. What's up, guys? Thanks for joining live. All right. So you're in the music biz, living the life of a rock star, and then you leave to get into, it seems like sales and marketing kind of right? Like you've built a lot of businesses.
Yeah.
Tell me, what was the transition to business that you made, and when did you make that before eventually, and we'll talk about how you branched into real estate after, but how did you first branch from music to business?
It was kind of a domino effect. The third record that we recorded, the first record was with an independent label, the second record was with my own label, and the third record was with Capitol. And we were all good buddies and everything was going great. And we were running around Capitol, being crazy in the big circular building. And a new A&R guy came in and shelved us. So we weren't being played. We weren't having any money dumped into us at all, which caused the attorneys to start suing one another. But it was funny because we're all friends. So we're out shooting pool and, saying, oh, you're suing me and I'm suing you. And that's all fine and well. But the guys at Capitol said, hey, you're not making any money right now. So why don't you come over and work in our marketing department? Because at that time, I was running all the marketing for the band. And this is back in the early, the MySpace days, right?
Right.
So they said, come over and do marketing here. So I went over to Capitol and I was doing some marketing there. My attorney, my entertainment attorney at the time, was the vice president for Paramount Pictures music division. And he said, why are you over there? Come over here. So I went to Paramount, started doing some marketing there, and everything was billboards and bus stops and things of that nature. And Paramount was starting to lose a lot of their traction to this thing called Google and Google advertising and Google marketing. And Facebook wasn't even an animal yet. It was just starting to come around. I think it was just starting to rear its head. And so I was at Paramount, and then I got a call from the UFC out in Vegas, and they said, come out here and be a music supervisor for the UFC. So I went out to Vegas for a year, and which wasn't bad. They put me up in a beautiful house and overlooking the Strip, and it was cool. But living in Vegas is kind of like living at Disneyland, right? Somebody says, hey, you want to go to Disneyland? No, I live there, right? So, it kind of took the wind out of that. But I was out there for a year, and I kind of had enough. But I did one very smart thing. They said, hey, license music to all the fights, all the pay-per-view, license all the music to the fighters. And I said, well, what kind of music? They said, I don't know. That's why we hired you. And I said, well, is there anything specific you want? And they said, whatever specific you want. So I double-checked that a few times to make sure that I was hearing that correctly. And then I went ahead and licensed all my own music.
I love it. So brilliant.
Smartest thing I ever did.
You're probably still getting royalty checks, right?
Yeah, it's the only money I still make off of my music. So at least I did one thing right in between cocktails, right?
That's brilliant.
But I was kind of done with that. And I wanted to get back into marketing. That's what I wanted to do. And I wanted to get back out to Orange County and be at the beach. And my then fiance, who's now my wife, I told her I wanted to get back into marketing, but I wanted to go for Google. I wanted to get into Google, and I wanted to go towards where everything was leading. So sure enough, moved back out from Orange County and started looking for jobs, and got linked up with an SEO company. And they're, kind of doing sales and as a sales manager. And I looked at everything that people needed and what was helping people with their businesses and get traffic and generate leads, and what was really doing that. And then I looked at the company I was working for, and they were selling that service, but they weren't fulfilling that service. And that didn't really get me much sleep. So I ended up, fast forward, then I got married and I started up my own shop. And I started growing that, and we ended up with 17 resellers and about 1,500 agents nationally. And it was a real sales monster. I had everything on automated. Everything was automated. You can plug and play salespeople, and they had all their back office training and everything. And it was very easy to scale.
I think something interesting about that too is, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was that business that you grew the sales team there from 7 to over 1,500 sales reps, correct?
Yeah, about 1,500 nationally. Yeah.
That is incredible. Over what period of time was that?
It was too fast, is what it was. It was about a year. It took about a year to get to there, maybe 14 months total.
Wow.
And in doing that, you run into a lot of policing issues, right? And salespeople typically say whatever they can to get the sale. They're promising a pink elephant over the phone, and then month 2, these people are calling back on their subscription saying, "Where's my pink elephant?" And we just don't sell those, right? So it was, hey, Jerry Green, how you doing, buddy?
What's up, Jerry?
Jerry Green, for those of you that are watching, Robert and I and Jerry, and a few of us, Tag was on here earlier. We were all out at a mastermind in Branson with the one and only John Martinez about a month or so ago.
Epic mastermind.
Yeah, that was so much fun. I mean, I think it was kind of created like a fraternal organization amongst.
I think it did. I think I've been on the phone with everyone from that.
That
mastermind at least once per week since we left.
Yeah, so
we got some big business deals going with all that too. Like, we're all doing business together too, which is a crazy thing.
It's amazing. And
more of the story, if you're not in a mastermind, join a mastermind, guys.
Yeah, I mean, the knowledge that you pick up is amazing. The relationships you pick up, and honestly, and I don't know if this goes for other folks that were at that mastermind. Chat in if you agree, but I learned a lot while I was there. But I think I've learned more since then from that group and from those friends that I've made than I did that
100%.
So yeah, it was a great experience. But so I came back to Orange County, got in with that company, got my own company started and grew that. And my whole goal, I kept saying this, and I guess you put something out in the universe, it tends to happen, right? And I kept saying, gosh, someday I just want to be able to work from home and monitor everything from my computer monitors at home and not have to work, right? And 2016, 2017, that happened. And I moved everybody remotely. I had a huge office. There was 280 seats, 280 sales reps in our headquarters. And I moved everybody remotely. And wouldn't you know it, I got more productivity from people sitting at home in their pajamas with a cat in their lap than I did, having them at the office.
Wow.
And
it's like COVID today.
It was exactly. I mean, flash forward to today, and it's pretty similar. But so I downsized and I chewed the fat, and it was working great. But here I was, I got my wish, and I was working from home and monitoring everything from my computer monitors. And I got really bored, and I kind of started getting complacent. And so it was kind of a time for me to kind of step back, and I brought some other people on board. And what's up, Tag?
What's up, Tag? What's up, Roy's on here too. What's up, Roy?
There's another Branson guy from my mastermind. But yeah, so I kind of got bored, and so I was doing some coaching and some things for some larger scale clients, and I had my irons in the fire, so to speak, on LinkedIn and all of those, and I got connected with Pete the Best. And for those of you who don't know Pete, you can see Pete on Flip or Flop, and Pete the Best is Tarek El Moussa's partner. And Pete and I got to chatting over the phone, and I think we talked for about an hour and a half the first time. And if you know me and you know Pete, you know that that's pretty easy to do. So we just hit it off, and I came in and sat down and talked with Tarek, and we started thinking about how we could scale up Tarek Buys Houses and how we could really grow it. And with my experience and my background and some of the hurdles that I went through to kind of learn how to grow, it applies really well. And here we are, and I've been in this seat for about, I guess, 5 months. It goes by really fast, and that's not a whole lot of time at all. But in that short amount of time, we've really moved mountains.
And this is really where our stories intersect, because a few months before you came in, I also came in to help to help Tarek and Pete on the tech and data side of things.
Yeah.
So I was there, and we got all our tech and data like buttoned down, gave them the best data, the best systems that are out there. But the missing piece was you. Like, most people don't know this, but like Tarek, when he does his show, most people think that those are just like whatever deals, those are deals that he actually does, that he brings the leads in for. Like, the numbers are real, the deals are real from A to Z, but he was focused just on the renovations. He wasn't doing like any wholesales. He would wholesale one here, one there. Yeah. The month before the month you came in, there was one wholesale deal that was done, made $40,000 on it.
Yeah.
Now, over 4 months, we ramped that up to over $1 million a month. Okay. Now, I know people are probably watching this and they're like, okay, well, how the hell did you do that? Right? Like, that doesn't even sound believable. So month one was 40. Month two was 200, and then 500, and then $1 million, and now we're over $1 million. Yeah. So, all right, the people want to know, what's the secret? What's the secret for us?
It's just hard work. No, I'm kidding. There's always a recipe to it, right? There's a recipe to everything.
Sign up for my course, and I will share the secrets.
Buy 4, and I'll give you 4. No, it's system and processes is one aspect, and you touched on that. Before I came along, you had kind of set the stage as far as data and things, and you got to be able to read the data, you got to be able to study it, you got to be able to steer the ship, and you got to know what to look for, and you got to look for KPIs, and there's a lot that goes into it that's surgical, and you got to do kind of a deep dive on things, and so thank you for kind of setting all that stuff in motion.
I always tell people, I'm like, I can give you Michael Jordans, but I can't make you Michael Jordan. So I had all the best tech and systems in place, but the team still was not performing well. Yeah. Right. So tell us, what was the change? What were the changes you made that really took it to the next step, to the next level?
I think that a lot of it, and Tarek touched on this too when he was on your show, a lot of it comes down to people, hiring the right people, right? Somebody who can study that data and steer the ship, and that's kind of where I come into play. But really, the good acquisitions people.
Can I jump in here real quick?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm supposed to. I can mention this or not, but pretty much you swapped out the entire team, right? Like, we're talking an entire fresh team, pretty much, not completely, but pretty much. When you came in, you brought in pretty much all of your own salespeople, right?
Yeah, I doubled the sales team right off the bat. And it comes down to, if you want to wage a war, you got to have an army.
Yeah.
And, you got to have the right soldiers in place. You got to have those frontline soldiers. You got to have everybody that does their roles and does them well. And you can't spread people too thin. If you have them doing 10 things, you're only going to get 10% in 10 areas. If you have them double down on one thing, you're going to get 100% out of that focus. So doubling the sales team, but really training. Doing a lot of scripting, a lot of role play, a lot of videos, and thanks to John Martinez for a lot of the stuff that he has shared with me that I'm able to pass along to my reps. John Martinez has a very distinct way of looking at things and looking at sales, getting in people's minds, and it's not a typical sales process. It's very mental.
Yeah.
So that's been a big help, and then just growing marketing. Marketing channels, marketing sources, and that's always a hurdle. That's a big hurdle for me because, I was in marketing, right? Everybody knows somebody or 10 somebodies that's in marketing or does SEO or does AdWords or does social, and that's all fine and well. But finding the right people that actually do it and don't just promise you a service. I always used to say I don't sell a service, I sell a result in my former life, right? And it's hard to find those people that will actually give you a result. What's up, Josh? John Martinez Worldwide. I know, right, Josh? Josh was on your show. Josh, I saw you on the show a couple weeks ago, right?
Blake, what's up, Blake? Blake's also on Investor Left. What's up, Blake?
It just comes down to the right people and then doubling down on marketing. So we have a very aggressive spend. And I was talking with Tag's partner, David Olds, about our spend and what we're spending. And it seems like a lot, right? When you say you spend $150,000 a month, That sounds like a lot of money, and it is. I mean, of course it is.
But when you're making $1 million back, I mean, you're almost getting 10x back.
Right? And
so wait, when you started, by the way, this is a main thing, a major point here that I want to make sure people don't gloss over. You can't just jump from $100,000 a month to $1 million a month and expect a greater output without increasing the input.
Yeah.
Right? Because a lot of people, they'll be like, oh yeah, I want to double my business. I'm like, okay, well, the first thing you got to do is double your marketing.
Yeah.
Okay. And in fact, you usually get diminishing returns as you increase your marketing. So you might want to 2.5x your marketing. So when you came in, how much was Tarek spending on pay-per-click then, month 1, and by month 4, what were you up to?
We were spending about $800 a day, and now we're spending probably around $6,000 a day.
Wow! So huge increase.
You know, I need to preface that though. You can't just go. I mean, some people are saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to go get a loan and throw money into marketing, and I'm going to be king." And it's not that.
It doesn't work that way.
You have to have everything's a cog on a wheel, and you have to have everything in place for that to run. If you go and you double down on marketing and you have all these inbound leads, which is glorious, right? I mean, it's a waterfall of money potentially if you have enough people to catch that water.
Right.
If you don't have a good enough team, then you're going to burn your leads. And if you don't have enough people, you're not going to be able to service your leads. You have to have everything in place, and you can't just go off and say, I'm going to spend $1 million and just get rich really fast. You've got to have a good team in place. And you have to have everything that will make those inbound leads work for you, and that investment that you put into it, it works for you, right? It gets your money working for you. So social media is a really good way to go because you get really good high quality leads, but it's expensive. It's an expensive animal. We've taken a hit that's been a hurdle for us over the past couple of weeks with the election spend.
Absolutely. And by the way, I got to piggyback off of this. Across Investor, we got a ton of clients who their major lead source is Google pay-per-click.
Yeah.
We've seen it crushed across the board over the last couple of weeks with elections. The uncertainty, everyone's sitting trying to figure out like what's happening in the country, and they're not thinking about selling their house.
Yeah. And the thing about Facebook or any social media, but let's talk about Facebook, is that with an election and things like that, when people are spending aggressively, your wall is going to be littered with their ads, and it makes anything else difficult to see. Whereas with pay-per-click and doing Google AdWords and things, if you type in "sell my house for cash," you're not going to see an ad for Donald Trump or for Joe Biden. It's just they're not targeting those keywords. So pay-per-click can weather the storm, and you get a much lower cost per lead, and you get a lot more opportunity for your acquisitions people to get on the phone. And really, that's what it comes down to: is creating opportunity for your acquisitions people. And if you have great acquisitions people, they're going to turn those opportunities into contracts. And then it all makes sense. Then you can figure out your cost per lead, your cost per acquisition, and you wake up in the morning and you say, you know what, I want to spend X today because I know I'm going to get this amount of leads. And you can really gauge it like a volume, like a volume knob. You turn it up, you turn it down. But yeah, pay-per-click is I would say the number one way to get inbound leads for a lesser cost than what it costs with social media and things like that. And I'm not negating social media. We make a lot of money from our efforts on social media, but pay-per-click.
PPC is the main focus. What percentage of your budget do you think, of the total marketing budget, you think goes into PPC?
I think it's split pretty evenly. Over the course of the elections, we doubled down on PPC and backed off on social. And I know that's pretty much across the board in all industries from what I hear. So our marketing teams and things are giving us
direct mail got crushed too.
Direct mail. We do a lot with direct mail. I think we sent out 40,000 mailers last month and 60,000 mailers this month. We had to go a little bit more aggressive this month just to get in front of people. Larger pieces of mail, very large postcards and things. And even still, it's a long game with direct mail. Multiple touches is what ends up winning. But and then back to the whole thing of how we did this: systems and processes. So you got to have the right software in place for your acquisitions team, for your dispositions team. You got to have the right lead sources, the right skip tracing sources, and
Can you tell us a little bit about that, about which pieces of software you use on a daily basis, and are there any that you can recommend for people?
Well, there's this one called Investor Lift.
Was not looking for a plug, but thank you anyways.
So Tarek Buys Houses has been around for 10 years. And that's when they first did the first episode, when the series first started getting moving. And all the homes that you see on Tarek Buys Houses, on Flipper Flop, are homes that we at Tarek Buys Houses acquire. And, we have 15 shows per season. So we have to make sure we've got 15 solid, content-rich, houses for the show. So we vet all the flips that we get pretty strenuously, and we come up with those handful for the show. It's Investor Lift has helped us do all of our dispositions. You always are going to have your handful of people that you can just text out to, and they'll pick up a property for you. But as we get into more markets, and we're getting very aggressive right now on growth and scaling, virtual wholesaling is something that is an amazing animal. And I honestly can't imagine being able to do that without being able to rely on Investor Lift and that God mode feature that you rolled out.
Thanks for the plug.
Yeah. Well, no, it works. I'm not trying to be shameless. So I've seen it work. I know it works.
Sweet.
So that's good. We also,
I'm glad to hear it's working for you, because there, like so many people. I was talking Corey Geary, you watching this? I was talking to him, and he was trying to go from the Phoenix market into other markets, but like the biggest problem he had was like, I don't know, something like 60 or 70% of the deals he was getting on contract, he couldn't find buyers for. So, I mean, imagine losing 60 to 70% of your revenue. Like the cost per year of losing that many deals is in the millions of dollars for a lot of these businesses. So dispo is a huge area to focus on. And then the other thing, a lot of people, they get to the point where they just sell a deal. They're like, okay, I got an offer. Okay. And they just go for the first offer. I'm like, no. If you do that, maybe you're making $20,000 assignment fee. But if you can get 4 or 5 offers, now you're in a multiple offer situation. Now you can make $35,000 instead of $20,000, because you can negotiate and bid people up. And I always tell people, how much more effort does it take to make a $35,000 assignment versus a $20,000? Almost none, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So it's we all talk about acquiring properties, right? We have to acquire properties. We have to have good acquisition. Jonathan says he loves PPC. Facebook, however, is locking me out of marketplace. My buddy got locked out again. Crazy. Yeah, Facebook has some crazy algorithms.
Yeah.
You can watch the Supreme Court on that. But there's always something going on with Facebook. But it's a good medium nonetheless. So I would say stick with it. But so we all talk about acquiring properties, because if we didn't acquire properties, we'd have nothing to sell. And we all really rely on the acquisition side, but you have to have a strong dispo side so you can make your money. And whether you're virtually wholesaling and you're using software for that, or you're just pounding the phones and growing your buyers list. Tag says, who manages your PPC? I have a couple of guys that manage it. One guy I've known for over 10 years, a guy by the name of Steve Wiedemann from the Wiedemann Group. He's a really good guy. He's here in Orange County. Known him for a very, very long time. I looked up to him for a very long time when I first got into marketing. So he's a good guy.
How do you spell his last name? Can I plug him right now? Can I plug?
Wideman.
Wiid. Sorry, my God.
Wideman. Wiedemann.
Yeah. Okay, I'm posting that in the comments, guys. Cool. I've talked to Steve, by the way. He knows his stuff.
Yeah.
And one thing that I found interesting about you guys is you don't just have one pay-per-click company, you have 2, because you with something that is the number one driver of revenue for your business, you don't necessarily always want to put all your eggs in one basket, correct? Is that kind of the logic behind that decision?
You have to have multiple sources, and you have to have, and then you can do A/B testing and split testing, really true split testing. If you have, one person running your social media campaigns and they do split testing, it's really hard to gauge on whether it's a campaign failure or a management failure, right? So having different sources enables you to really gauge who your people are, and you can kind of grow from there. But yeah, so PPC is a really good marketing source tag. So I'll talk to you after this and give you more information.
Yeah, I'm gonna before we move off of PPC, the one thing I want to throw on here and add on to this is if you're having problems with inconsistent lead flow or inconsistent deal flow, every time I hear a business has that problem, it's because they're not doing PPC. Okay, usually they're doing texting or they're doing calling, and that's usually, and you got to do that to first get in the door when you don't have money. You don't have money to spend $200, $300, $400 sometimes per lead. But texting and calling, it's very difficult to get a really consistent lead flow every single day or week or month, versus with pay-per-click, it's like ordering sushi. Like if I have my account dialed in and I know it's $100 per lead, if I want 10 leads tomorrow, I just tell Google, hey, I want 10 leads. And guess what? Tomorrow I get 10 leads.
Yeah,
it's not that simple, but it's pretty close, right?
Yeah, no, it is for sure. And somebody says, who manages Facebook ads? We have a number of companies, and right now I'm also bringing PPC and social in-house as another split test, right? And go into other markets and compare those against markets that I've got other people managing and marketing in. And it's a constant grow it and then whittle it down, grow it and then whittle it down. Because you've got to throw paint at the wall to see what sticks, and you've got to get that studyable data. With PPC, with social ads, everything that you do, there's a certain ramp up amount of time, and there's a certain amount of propagation and digestion that has to happen online, so you can get that studyable data back. If you don't have the studyable data, you can't steer the ship. So there, you have to be patient. You kind of have to invest in that studyable data. It's like going to college. You go to school for a little while and you learn, and then you come out of it stronger, and you can really kind of take the bull by the horns and double down on your spend.
It looks like this might be a question for me. Jonathan's asking, is investor left open back to the public? Okay, so we opened deal posting to the public before. You used to have to have an enterprise license, which is a 6-figure a year cost for an enterprise license. Forrest's got one, Tag's got one, Phillips got one. A few of these guys on here have them. But I wanted deal posting to be open, especially I opened it up during COVID because a lot of people were having trouble moving deals. I was like, hey, it's a public service, I'm going to open it up. The problem was I got flooded with a bunch of junk deals, so I just shut it off for a little while because I didn't want to have to go through them all. But I just recently reopened it, so if you do have a deal to post, you can go post it. We have a pretty strict review process on the publicly posted deals. They got to be really good deals, but it is back open. So if you have a deal, Jonathan, go ahead and post it. Back to you, Forrest, though. Any last thoughts about pay-per-click and why it's so good? Why it's really been the key driver of the growth for the last few months?
Well, once it's kind of a rinse and repeat method, right? So once you kind of have your campaigns dialed in and your ad groups set up, it's really easy to rinse and repeat that in multiple markets. So for those of you that are virtual wholesale and doing virtual wholesaling, using pay-per-click to get into those markets is a really good way to go. It's very easy to just double down in new markets and move yourself right in. So that's why PPC is great, and you don't have the ramp up time that you do with social media. So, and again, I'm not trying to knock social media because we make a lot of money off of our social ads. They're just a little bit more expensive. So
now a lot of people right now are talking about the death of texting. Now I predicted this back in January when I actually did my first Dealmaker Nation show. I said texting is going to die here in the next 12 to 24 months. I think we're starting to see that now. You've seen a little bit of that at Tarek Buys Houses. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you've seen, what your experiences have been?
Yeah, and there's really nothing we can do about it, right? I mean, it's compliance, and it's the hurdles we have to go through. I mean, it used to just be very simple to text somebody out and say, Carol, and if they write back, then hey, you're in a conversation. But now you have to say, hi, this is Forrest. I'm with Tarek Buys Houses. I'd love to talk to you about 123 Main Street, and then automatically it tacks in, reply stop to opt out of this message. And it's really difficult when you're trying to sell somebody something to give them an off ramp. If I came up and I said, hey, I want to talk to you about cars, tell me no if you don't want to hear about it. And if you're busy, you're going to say no. So it gives everybody an out, and it makes it difficult. We get a lot of opt-out messages now, whereas before we could get our toe in the door and kind of open it up for conversation. So I've talked with, of course, Lead Sherpa and Batch.io and Launch Control and all of these text messaging platforms. And I go back and forth with their owners and their managers all the time, and we're trying to figure this stuff out because I have seen a major decline. And I talk with colleagues in the industry, like Tag, he's in the room here in the chat room. We talk about text messaging all the time, and we're all kind of in the industry trying to figure out where it's going. And in talking with Lead Sherpa, they're saying compliance. It's always going to be here, and it's always going to get more strenuous. And so, yeah, you could be right, Robert. It could be on its way out, kind of like ringless voicemails and things like that. The FCC's cracking down on that so much. Yeah. It used to be where you could drop a voicemail and they wouldn't hear a chirp. Now it gives half a ring and it's not really ringless. And so you're getting people calling you back saying, hey, I have a missed phone call, and they've never even listened to voicemail. So there's a few things because of compliance that are really seeing the end of the road, I think, fairly soon.
Yeah, the way I look at it is it's like spam email back in the 90s.
Right.
It used to be so easy to spam. You get an email list of 1 million people. You blast off your email. You get 100% deliverability, and you do $1 million in sales. And then and then the spam algorithms came along. It's the same thing now with texting. There's a lot of now algorithms by the carriers, the same kind of algorithms that they're using in texting, but they're being for email, but they're being applied to texts. And there's this battle of the different platforms trying to keep ahead of them to try to keep deliverability up. But it's a losing game. We're always going to be one step behind. Now, did you recently switch from Lead Sherpa to Batch?
No.
Did you make the move?
I talked about that. That's probably why you're asking. But
yeah,
I looked into it, and I'm not going to speak poorly about anything. But the devil I know is sometimes better than the devil I don't. And with text messaging, it is kind of a frustrating thing lately. And so. No, we're still with Lead Sherpa, and we use it every day. And, we do a lot of text messaging, and we have gotten some sales from it. But it takes a lot of texting to get to a deal.
Yeah, you burn out your sales team real fast.
Yeah, it definitely can. I remember back in the early days when you could do email spams. As a matter of fact, I sent out back in the Gulf War. Remember Gulf Storm? Was that what it was called in the early 90s?
Gulf War?
Late 90s, I guess. Was it? No, it would have had to have been early 2000s. So I'm not sure what was going on there. But so there was a group of soldiers stationed in Bahrain, and they were trying to order some of the CDs that I had on my website. And I said, well, I'm just going to send them to you guys for free. How many of you guys want them? And you guys can just cover the shipping cost. I think I was 20 years old or 21, 22. And, I didn't want to come out of pocket too much, but I also wanted to make sure that these guys got it for free if that's what they wanted. So they said there's 10,000 of us. So I said, okay. And I sent out just this huge shipment, and they all said that they'd pay $1 for shipping. And I ended up getting $10,000 in revenue from sending off these CDs for free, just covering shipping to Bahrain. But the way I sent out to all of them for them to pay was for the shipping was through spam emails and sending out just a huge blast of 10,000 emails back when you could do that.
I can't do that anymore.
You can't do that anymore for sure. But we use a lot of different processes. So, Investor Lift is one of them for our dispositions and for wholesaling and virtual wholesaling. Shout out to David Lecko for Deal Machine. He's working on something for us right now, and he's managing an entire Driving for Dollars arm.
Nice.
He's awesome. He's actually managing that for us, which is fantastic. And we use in-house. We use PropStream.
Love PropStream. If you guys don't use it, check it out.
Yeah, for sure. PropStream will enable your acquisitions team to see MLS and public record anywhere in the country, and really get an idea on comps and property values and tax roll and all that stuff. So it's all kind of built into there. And I do a lot of leads through PropStream as well. I pull a lot of leads through there. So shout out to Rob Czar for that, and to Burton if you're watching. But systems and processes and people. Those are the three things: systems, processes, and people. And if you have good training and a good onboarding process, and you have good people that you hire and you nurture, and then you have the right software to kind of carry everything through, that's kind of the recipe. And then once you have that recipe put together, then you tack in the marketing and the advertising. And once you really kind of figure it out and master it, you double down and you triple down, and you just keep moving forward and growing and scaling. And that's kind of where we are right now.
Wow. Absolutely incredible. So the secret is there is no secret. It's just the fundamentals. That's why I always tell you. I'm like, dude, you just got to focus on the basics. The basics is, what is my return on ad spend for every dollar I plug in? How many dollars do I get out?
Yeah.
And then what is my cash conversion cycle? How fast am I doing that?
That's the important thing. And when you're spending money in marketing, and if you get aggressive spending money in marketing, and for those of you that are watching, if you are primarily only doing flipping, you have a long cash stream. Your cash cycle is 4 to 5 to 6 months, depending on how much work you're putting into the property. And you're waiting a long time to get that return and that profit realized. And if you're doing wholesaling, you have those quick turnarounds, and it's a much faster cash churn, not just from a company standpoint, not just for the company's revenue, but your acquisitions people, your dispositions people, they're salespeople, and salespeople need to win. It's in their blood. If those of you guys out there that are career salespeople, you know what I'm talking about. You have to win, and you have to do it multiple times. And even small wins, if you get to ring that bell and everyone applaud for you and send you messages with flame emojis and everything that we do in house here, and we applaud, and we've got prizes,
all about
contests, and that goes a long way. And if you've got good people, they're very receptive to that, and they get better. And multiple wins it helps the company, it helps morale, it helps synergy, and wholesaling can do that for you. And then of course you've got your cash churn, your cash cycle is much faster, and then you can really double down on your marketing without worry.
Yeah. I always tell flippers, people that are 100% flip, the fastest way you can go bankrupt is to have a whole bunch of success. If you try to scale up a flipping business, I've never seen someone successfully scale up a flipping business.
Yeah.
Never. They always nearly bankrupt because the cash conversion cycle is way too long. You're tying up so much capital. The more deals you get, the more capital, and stuff starts going over budget. Stuff starts not getting done when you think it was going to get done. It's impossible. When I was at Express, we were doing 60 flips at a time my first year there. It was insane. And all the estimated profit we thought we were going to make, we never ended up making. Josh Cohan, who normally co-hosts, he couldn't make it tonight because he ran into some issues with a seller or with a buyer, actually. He's trying to resolve those right now. Hopefully keep his deal together.
Yeah.
But I mean, we transitioned him from development, 100% development, to 100% wholesaling just over the last 3 months. And I remember the reason why he did that is I met with him 3 months ago, and he was just so stressed. All the projects he was doing, he was literally pulling his hair out. He's like, dude, man, I can't even sleep at night. I'm so stressed about all these projects. And not only that, but with COVID, he didn't know where the market was going to go. He couldn't really depend on what his estimated ARVs were going to actually be. He didn't know if they're going to be up, down, 5%, 10%, whatever. And then so we did that transition for him. He's got already $200,000 on the books just for this month. And he's like, he messaged me last night. He's like, hey, it's a whole new world, whole new world. I feel like I used to be a caveman. Now I feel like I'm like a rich dude on the beach. Or I can't remember his exact words. But he sent me this text and I just laughed. I'm like, dude, I told you so. I've been telling you this for a year. But he finally went through that transition. And guys, if you're doing flips right now, a lot of people, when they first get into the business, they think that, wholesaling is for the amateurs. Flipping's where it's really at. That's what the pros do. It's the opposite. If you've been in this business long enough, you will know 100%. Like Jerry would just mention, ask me. I know Jerry's been in this business 20 years. The money is not in the flip; it's in the wholesaling.
25-year-old young man. So.
Absolutely. Now, Forrest, you guys are expanding now. So you nailed the wholesale business in California, And now I'm seeing you guys branching into Tulsa. You've been doing, I think, some deals in Chicago, maybe even some of the DMV. Tell me about what the expansion plan is, what your plans are for going virtual. How is that going so far? And what are your plans for the next year?
Conquering.
Love it.
We're moving into so many different markets right now. You know, a big thing about scaling is anybody can scale up, right? Add more people, add more of this, add more of that. But if you have cracks in your foundation, just like a property, if you have cracks in the foundation, the house on top of it's not very stable. And you know, we have to. You've got to have everything in place, and that's what I've been working on while we grow. Again, throwing paint at the wall and see what sticks. You grow and then you narrow that down, and then you grow and then you narrow that down. And you know, I call it chewing the fat. You know, you get rid of what isn't working and you double down on what is. And right now we're moving into multiple states, and you know what we've done in the past nationwide in some of the states we've worked with, we have boots on the ground. We have property managers, we have GCs, and that's been very comfortable. So moving into the virtual wholesaling thing arena has been, you know, somewhat uncharted territory for Tarek Buys Houses. And I'm not doing a plug, but that's why Investor Lift has given us a little bit more confidence in getting into that.
Thanks for the plug.
As we can do that. And I'm just being honest. We're happy to have, you know, that on tap to be able to utilize, but we're adding in more marketing in all these different areas. We're getting ready to launch a commercial right now in Southern California, another television commercial, and also one in Oklahoma. So for those of you in Oklahoma, I'm sorry, you're going to have to see me and Tarek on TV, probably more than you want to. But we've been doing a lot of buy and holds in Oklahoma. I think we picked up 30 in the past couple months. So yeah, we're growing really fast with those, and then of course Southern California is where we, you know, do a lot of the flips, because that's where the show is based out of, Orange County, Los Angeles area. So
love it.
Yeah.
Now you're still looking to buy a lot in Tulsa, right? So if people are watching this show and they have Tulsa deals, send them to Forrest. Okay, we'll put your email at the end of the show.
Yeah, email them over to me. It's Forrest with 2 R's at TarekBuysHouses.com. So send me anything that you have in Oklahoma City, Owasso, Broken Arrow, Tulsa. If it fits the buy box, then absolutely, I will more than likely pick it up. And likewise, if anybody out there wants to do some deals, if you guys have some things that you're looking for to fit your buy box, let me know what you're looking for, and hopefully we can come together and do some business together. So I see a couple people in the chat right now that we're actually, you know, working on deals with Roy and Eric, and we're all doing business together. So if I'm not doing business with you and you're watching this, let's do some business together.
There's the email, guys. Forrest at TarekBuysHouses. Keep that email.
There you go. I respond to everybody. So even if I don't want to sometimes.
Do you want to go over your buy box real quick? Phillips asking, I'm sure other people are wondering, do you want to mention what your buy box is in the Tulsa market or just in general?
Yeah, for buy and holds, we typically try and stick to a 1% rule as long as the rental income is greater than 1% of the overall value of the property. Typically, we walk into things that have a 12 to 15% equity when we walk into them. We don't typically go after anything that rents for less than $1,000 a month. We find that has a little bit more challenging of a tenant, so to speak. A lot more police has to go into play. It's if we can have a strong equity position and it rents for 1% or greater than the overall value, then and I know that's a dream number, but we find it, and we've been finding them. And if anybody out there has anything that fits that, let's definitely talk. So I'm on task to pick up another 20 buy and holds in Oklahoma before Christmas. So if you've got them, send them.
There's your biggest buy right there. Tarek will buy everything. Now, the funny thing too is, like, you know, we talked about flip versus wholesaling and how it makes sense to really transition out of flipping to wholesaling, do as much wholesaling as you can. That's not necessarily that's not necessarily as true with buy and holds? Like I always tell people to stay focused. So if you're just getting rolling, you're not at $1 million a month as a wholesaler. Maybe you want to focus on wholesaling until you really have that streamlined and like down pack. But you guys almost have nearly 100 buy and holds. So can you maybe tell us a little bit about why it's maybe a little bit okay to also be doing buy and holds while you're wholesaling, and what some of the advantages of that strategy might be?
Well, it depends on your financial position. Adam Lindholm, who is the vice president of Tarek Buys Houses, we kind of call each other co-generals when it comes to managing input and output here at the company. He told me, and I think that this is really, really something great. A good investor has no money in the bank because their money is invested and it's making them money. So, if you've got money sitting in the bank, roll it into a property. Roll it into a property that's going to make you money. And that's where the buy and holds, that's a constant revenue stream. It's constant influx of cash that you don't necessarily have to worry about. Find a good property manager to take care of the property for you, or properties for you. And that's just a constant influx of cash. And of course, you're building assets. But, the one thing that you mentioned about the difference between flipping and wholesaling, the reason that the show is called Flip or Flop is because when you get into flipping, it's either going to be a flip or it's going to be a flop. And you can potentially set yourself up for a negative profit, right? You can set yourself up for a loss. And with wholesaling, the worst thing that can happen is you back out of the deal. It's wholesaling, you have a much faster cash churn than flipping. But as I find, you can make a lot more money with flipping per transaction, per property. But wholesaling is those one after another, after another, after another. And right now, we do about a deal a day on the average. Sometimes we'll do more. Through the elections here, it hasn't quite been a deal a day. But a deal a day is 365 deals a year.
Right.
And, we have leads coming in at 10 o'clock at night, at 2 o'clock in the morning, and our guys are on that. And they hop on those calls and they make sure that people are taken care of. And a big thing that motivates me in this space is solving people's problems and solving a solution for a lot of these sellers. And I don't know if the rest of you guys out there get what I'm saying, but it's not just about making money. A lot of these sellers are really up a creek. They're in a bad spot. And for you to be able to come in with that solution, with that prize, with that Band-Aid, to help them move on to the next chapter of their life is rewarding. And of course, money is rewarding, right? We all do this so we can make money, but at the end of the day, it's you can solve problems for people. And we had a gentleman who needed to move out of his house, and I call this the most expensive dog story. He needed to move out of his house. His house was worth probably about $800,000, and
love the story.
He came in at $650,000. And it's been about a year talking to him, and the reason he didn't want to move is because he didn't want foot traffic. He could have listed it on the open market, but he would have had a lot of foot traffic, a lot of showings, and he has a dog that has heart problems and has high anxiety, and he didn't want the dog to pass away. It's his only companion.
Wow.
So he said, I will take your offer because it's hassle-free. And what pushed him over the edge was that we gave him recommendations and let him find the proper moving companies that would come in and work with special circumstances. We found him a pet hotel that treated pets like they were the residents and treated the owners like second-class citizens. And he just loved it. And he was able to leave his house, check into a hotel. Everything was packed up by the movers. His new house was set up for him. He checked out of the hotel and checked right in there. Dog didn't skip a beat. Everything was great. But by solving that one problem of how do I move out of here so my dog doesn't go nuts, something as simple as that is what put the deal over the top. And
that's what I'm talking about.
Close. So helping people solve problems, helping people get out of inheritance situations. And, it's really rewarding.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like you just nailed such a pro level strategy. I see this across all the biggest, highest performing teams is the amateurs, they're just going to get on the phone, give their number. And it's yes, no. And maybe you'll capture a small percent of leads. What the pros realize is we are the most expensive way to sell a house. Yeah. There is no way of selling a house that's more expensive than us. So what you really need to be thinking about is how can I offer the most white glove experience possible?
100%.
And if the amateurs don't go the extra mile, like you were just talking about, like the stuff the team did on that deal is just extraordinary. That's what the pros will do. They'll think, they'll innovate, they'll customize solutions, go outside of the norm to bring a deal together to give them that perfect experience. Because a lot of people that sell, they're not selling based on logic, but mostly based on emotion. Like this guy just loves his dog so much, he doesn't want his dog to die.
Yeah.
His dog is worth way more to him than an extra $50,000 or $100,000 in the bank.
Yep. Yep.
Right. And that's the case for a lot of people.
Doing the deal. That was the deal killer. So
Wow.
John Martinez talks about that a lot. Identify the deal killers.
Can you explain deal killers? I know John talked about it on his episode, but for people that haven't seen that episode, if you haven't, by the way, check it out. It's on the channel. But can you explain deal killers and why they're so important?
Well, you have to identify their motivation, right? So we ask people a lot, what's your timeline? That's a really good way to gauge their motivation and how quickly they're planning on moving forward. But the deal killers can be, we inherited the house and, my sister and I agreed to sell, but my brother, we can't get a hold of him and there's nothing we can do. He's in prison. And we've actually had to send documents and get things signed from guys in prison. And we've done that for those siblings. And, you have to identify what the deal killers are. We'll talk to a wife and she says, my husband doesn't like the idea of selling because he thinks that the house that we've taken excellent care of since 1981 is still in perfect condition. And I'm sure it is in 1981. It's perfect. But we're going into 2021 and we have to bring it up to current standards. And so identifying what's going to kill your deal. And John Martinez says things like, I feel like there's something else that maybe we haven't uncovered yet that you're apprehensive about. Maybe I'm wrong, but am I? Can you talk to me about that? And identifying those things. And, in acquisitions, you really got to be empathetic and you've got to build rapport and you've got to really dig deep to find out why these people contacted you in the first place. If it's an inbound lead, identifying with why they filled out the form, why they contacted you in the first place, and get them back to that chain of thinking, that pain point, so to speak, that motivated them to reach out and say, yeah, I want to sell my house to an investor. I want to sell it fast. I want to sell it for cash. And finding out what their dilemmas are, because those are if you can overcome those hurdles, then you're smooth sailing, right? So I always say the devil's in the details. So if you get those out of the way up front, it's a very easy thing to put the deal together. And then you have somebody who's really happy. We've been really getting a lot of video testimonials and video reviews from a lot of our sellers because they're so happy. I mean, we have sellers that are doing full-on tears and waterworks because of the situations we've been able to get them out of. Some people are in pre-foreclosure. They're going to lose their house. Now they've got a little cash. There's so many ways to solve problems for people by identifying those deal killers. And that's what's going to get you the sales.
Yeah. A lot of times, it's almost like there's an elephant in the room. You can tell there while you're on the appointment that they're not 100% there. There's something holding them back. And by just pointing out the elephant in the room and bringing it up, you're able to address it. You have that opportunity to address it instead of just losing that deal like most people do.
Yeah.
Now, I know that that's one mistake a lot of people make is not addressing those deal killers. What do you think some of the other major mistakes are that you've seen sales teams make? Because you've built some of the biggest sales teams out there, 1,500 people on your last sales team. What do you think some of the biggest mistakes people make in sales, and how could they correct those?
I think the biggest part of selling anything is listening, right? And anybody who's in sales is saying, well, yeah, of course. But I can't stress enough how important that is, especially in what we do and trying to acquire properties from people and talking to sellers. If you're not listening, if you're not paying attention to what they're saying and all you're thinking about is the next thing you want to spit out at them or the next way you want to steer the conversation, then you've missed the whole point. You missed the entire point of what you're working on doing. And you have to listen to them. They're going to give you the ammo. They will give you all the ammo you need. You don't need to come up with bullets and come up with things to say and ways to get them enticed. A lot of it is getting them to sell themselves on the idea of selling you their home. You're never going to talk somebody out of their number one asset. And you're not dealing with real estate aficionados either. You're dealing with somebody who 30 years ago wound up that they could buy a house. And so they did. And now they're looking at exiting. And that's all they know about real estate. And they had a realtor involved before, and they didn't have to know anything about real estate because the realtor did. So it's identifying with them on a personal level, not a real estate level. I mean, obviously, you've got to show them comps and walk through why their as-is house is worth what it is, et cetera. But you have to listen. If you're not listening, then you're not going to have the ammo to steer the conversation in the right way. And that's probably the biggest mistake that any salesperson in any industry makes, especially in this. But yeah, that's right. Philip just said that's the best tip.
100%.
It's listening. It's really listening to what they have to say, because that's going to give you everything you need to go on. And, with my guys here, I tell everybody, take really good notes, right? So when you're talking to them, you should be filling out notes and notes and notes and notes, because you shouldn't be relying on this to remember every single person you talk to. It's just not, unless you're a computer, unless you're Rain Man, it's not going to work. You're not going to be able to remember them. You're going to fumble through. You're going to say, oh yeah, how's your dog? And you're like, I don't have a dog. Yeah, right? So if you make those notes while you're talking to them, dog named Sadie, husband in the hospital for chest pains, right? So when you get back on the phone with them in 2 days, 1 week, you can say, hey, so how's Sadie? Is Sadie a husky, by the way, or what was that? Because it's all in your notes. And how's your husband's heart condition? What's going on there? They treat him well at the hospital. And these people will light up for that. So take good notes from listening, right? So it all comes back to listening. It's going to give you all the ammunition that you need in order to make a friend over the phone with the seller, gain the trust and the credibility to be able to do business with them and do a deal.
Yeah. If you look at all the top companies in the world, they all do this. Yeah. I'll give you an example. I remember when I was 18 years old, I was working at the Ritz-Carlton in Montreal. We'd have some of the biggest celebrities in the world come in. I had Coldplay, Rolling Stones. I used to serve the prime minister and former prime ministers every Sunday, because I was the one on the team that spoke English the best. And the standard policy was, if you're interacting with a customer and you pick up on anything, or you have any conversation about anything personal, like it's their anniversary, the name of their dog, their birthday, whatever, what kind of food they like, what kind of wines they like, whatever it is, immediately got to put it into the system. Yeah. So that way, when that person comes back, it's not just like, hey, how many? Would you like a table? It's like, hi, Mr. Jones, welcome back. It's so great to see you. I guess you're here to celebrate your anniversary. Would you like your usual table that you prefer? And would you like your steak the way you like it? And you're going to have your bottle of 96 Bordeaux as well. And then that, like, those kinds of things help you push the sales beyond anything ever. I remember anytime there was like an anniversary or whatever, first thing I do is check the system, make sure I get them on my tables. And I walk up to the table. My standard line was, looks like you guys are here to celebrate something. Are you? Yeah. And then I'm like, you know what celebration calls for? Champagne. Yeah. And like, when people buy a meal, they spend like $50 on the meal, or maybe 100 max. But you sell one bottle of champagne. I've sold $15,000 bottles of wine and champagne, and that's more than you can sell in a week on food. So like, doing these small things not only just make the customers feel super, super, super special and super, super important, but they're also going to make you more money, guys. Yeah. They're going to make you way more money. So 100%, you got to listen, and you got to provide that white glove service.
And when you 100%. Do, when you're listening like that, you become their guy. You become their guy or gal, pardon me. And that's your go-to. They're always going to remember you. It's like, I say this, I've said this story a number of times. If you find a great barber, somebody to do your hair, you're not immediately going to go look for another one. So you find somebody who takes care of you and you identify with, and they identify with you, and they're listening, and they remember you, and they make you feel special. Then you're not going to look for somebody else to fill that role. You've already got the best person for the job. So that's a big part of sales, is listening and just becoming their confidant, becoming the best person for the job, because you're in their ecosystem, because you're listening and paying attention, and you remember things. And that comes down to taking good notes while you're listening.
100%. Guys, we're already over time here, so we're going to be wrapping things up pretty soon. But before you do, I just want to mention, guys, if you have a question for Forrest, drop it in the comments below. I know we got a lot of people asking questions throughout the show. I think we've addressed most of them so far. Hector, I'm actually back in Virginia now, so definitely PM me. We'll definitely have to meet up sometime. questions about marketing, questions about sales, questions about anything. Crazy stories Forrest has.
Questions now, my email address, he posted that up.
Absolutely.
I'm always here to help. I'm always here to assist. If you have questions, if I've got the time, I will definitely help and assist and give you shed any kind of light on anything, or hook you up with any kind of connections with PPC or any kind of softwares or anything like that. So lean on me anytime you need. My door is always open, and I'm always willing to and interested to make a new friend.
All right, we got a question coming up from Roy. He's asking, how are you finding your sales team? Roy, this is a big problem for Roy. He's in Virginia Beach. He says it's nearly impossible to find great salespeople. So can you tell us a little bit about that, how you're finding salespeople?
Yeah, I mean, all the usual suspects. We go through ZipRecruiter and Indeed and just every job posting out there to get, thanks, Jerry, to get good quality people. And, you know, I just went through another round of hiring, and I've got more people coming on board next week because we're airing the commercials, and I anticipate a surmountable amount of phone calls. So, and I just got done having, I mean, just here's a couple right here. I've got stacks and stacks of resumes everywhere, and then I make notes on every one, and I do phone screenings and phone interviews with them because we're talking about phone sales. And then I have them come in and sit down, and I meet with them, and then I whittle it down from there. Again, it's about this, and then cultivating down here, and then growing, and then whittling it down. So I bring in people for interviews, and then once I pick a selected few, I have them come back for a second interview. So you have to be really strategic, right? I mean, Roy, you're the best at what you do. Right? You're the best at what Roy does, but finding other Roys to do what Roy does is difficult. And it's never going to be easy. It's just, again, you've got to throw a lot of paint at the wall. You have to interview as many people as you possibly can and listen to them, right? And go through their resumes and see what works, see their experience and their background. The people that I'm hiring on right now have a background in solar, and they have a background in timeshares. Timeshare sales and vacation rental sales, that's a call center kind of mentality.
Yeah.
They're used to doing phone sales. You know, a lot of the solar guys are used to going door to door and canvassing, and they know areas really well. But there's a lot of posting ads, getting resumes, going through the resumes. I mean, it takes some time. I mean, just for the two positions I filled, I've been going through resumes for the past 4 weeks and doing phone calls and phone screenings and setting up interviews and then whittling it down and bringing people into their second.
How do you do that? How do you do that for us? What are you looking for when you're on those phone calls?
Think on their feet.
Okay.
I'm looking for people that can think on their feet, and I'm looking for people that kind of that can talk to people and that listen. Right? We're back to that listening thing again. Yeah. That's kind of been a constant of this conversation, but it's so true. But you know, I look at their resumes and I see what their background is and see if they can handle a high pressure situation and see if they can handle a grind. And you know, I've hired a lot of realtors in the past. In the past few months, I've had some people come through that are real estate backgrounds, and that's great. But sometimes they don't have that ability to dance on the phone and think on you and be proactive. Then there's those people that just want inbound leads, and in between the inbound leads, they're picking their nose and going to the bathroom and wasting time. And you know, you really need people that are highly efficient and understand that, you know, they can really cut their own check. If you've got these people on any kind of commission structure over and above, say, a base pay like we do here, they can cut their own check if they work really hard. I mean, there should never be any downtime if that means with that time they could be making money for themselves and growing their bottom line. So it's finding those people that just are hungry and they're good listeners and they're good on the phones and they want money and they want to grind it out and make as many phone calls and talk to as many people and develop as many relationships as needed, you know, to bring home the bacon that they need.
Yeah. Now, I think what's really incredible about your story, Forrest, is, well, actually, this kind of circles back to what you were just saying, is like, you don't really need to be a real estate pro to do well in this business. You just need the fundamentals, and the fundamentals are really talking to people, right? Are you good at talking to people? Are you a good communicator? Are you a good listener? If you can learn that, the rest, you can learn the rest in what, a couple of weeks?
I mean,
right?
I think we can all pretty much attest to, you know, real estate, buy a property, sell a property. It's not a lot of rocket science in between that. But to scale and grow and be a leader, you really have to, on the acquisition side specifically, because that's, I look at acquisitions as more of a B2C type sale, right? It's business to consumer. And then on your dispo side, it's kind of a business to business, because if you're selling to other wholesalers and things, you're talking about money. You're not talking about feelings like you are when you're talking with a seller. So the acquisition side definitely has to have a nurturing aspect. I have people with customer service backgrounds. So that comes into play. And on the disposition side, you want to make sure somebody can definitely talk numbers, and it's a little bit more of a professional play, I think. But here again, it's just hiring the right people and training them to be another Roy, right? Like we were talking to you, Roy. If Roy could kill it if there was 100 of him.
Yeah.
But it's really difficult to find even one Roy, let alone 100 of them, and it's going to take time. And you have to place a lot of job ads. You've got to go through a lot of resumes. You have to go through a lot of phone screening and in-person interviews, and really figure out who's going to be your core group that is as close to being Roy as possible.
Yeah, you'll never get to 100%. Like I always say, if you can get someone that's even 80% as good as you, that's a huge win.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with that.
100%. Now, what's crazy about your story is you didn't have really that much real estate background at all before jumping in. Really, you came in just as a sales expert. So what was that like, and what was kind of the learning experience? What were some of the key insights that you learned over the last few months, going from like zero wholesaling experience to now running one of the probably the fastest growing wholesale business in the country?
It's really just diving into the deep end of the pool and learning really quickly. And I think we can all agree that real estate investing is a data-driven industry, right? Our lead sources, our softwares, and if you can study data and you understand data, there's not a whole lot of difference between real estate or any other industry when you're buying and selling. So there's a certain global recipe that falls into place. And then really for me, so I had owned, I started buying properties when I was 19. So I know that side of it as being an owner and a purchaser, but I grew up, my father's a commercial real estate guy. Shout out to my dad. And you know what, to everybody out there, happy Veterans Day. I just wanted to say that. I applaud you guys and thank you very much for everything.
100%.
So, but my dad was a big commercial real estate guy. And back before wholesaling was even a term, that's what he was doing. He would lock up an 8-hole golf course with modular homes on it. And during that transaction, he would go and have it built out into an 18-hole golf course with a clubhouse and basically assign the contract. So I learned a lot from him, and being a little kid going out to some of his meetings and things like that. But getting into this was a very fast learning experience as far as how real estate investing works. And again, it comes down to marketing, advertising, hiring, training, good people. And I really don't think that that's much different than any other industry in that basic core ideology. Good people, good training, and that's probably what's going to push it over the top. And that's what I've applied here. And that's why we're scaling, and that's why we're growing. I mentioned Adam Lindholm before. Adam is a realtor. He knows real estate in and out. He's been with the company for 10 years, since day one. And he does a lot of our transaction control and transaction coordinating, and he vets a lot of the deals. And I lean on him for that, right? So I always say, between Adam and I, we know everything. So if you ask me a question, I'll always tell you to defer to Adam. But yeah, so he's taught me a lot just in the short months that I've been here from the real estate side. And I'm sure that he'll never admit it, but he's learned a little bit from me on the market side. So
I know I have. I've learned a lot. We got a question from Eliza. She says, "What is the biggest challenge you've seen at TBH from when you first started till now?" I know there's been a few, right? It's never that easy. So, what do you think was the biggest?
Loaded questions, aren't you? The biggest change that we've seen, honestly, doubling down on the wholesale side of things. We're known for being flippers. We have shows. We have Flipper Flop. We have Flipping 101. And getting into wholesale, there's always the risk of tarnishing or hurting or damaging or bruising a brand. when you have to back out of deals or you have to beat the seller up and lower prices and things like that when you're negotiating. And that's been a very delicate dance for us, and or at least it was before we really started getting strong into it. And now we've got it down pat, and it's that's probably been the biggest change, is really doubling down on the wholesale side of things and growing that revenue side. And then now we're expanding into so many different markets. And Tarek has licensing agreements and franchise agreements, and it's really growing on a number of levels. And it's pretty exciting. It's really exciting. We have a lot of growth going on right now within the Tarek El Moussa brand arena. So it's a lot of growth happening. And I think that comes down to, and I think Tarek would probably say the same, it really comes down to having the right people in place to be able to scale up. You have to have the right foundation to build a solid house on. So that's kind of what it comes down to.
Now, I know you guys are launching a lot of stuff right now. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the projects that Tarek and you are launching? I know you got TEM Investments.
Mm-hmm.
There's another one you're working on with Matt Fullerton. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
I can't say too much just yet, but that's really growing. We have a number of different things that are growing right now. We have TEM Investments, and I am not as involved in that as I am with Tarek Buys Houses. Tarek Buys Houses is really our primary focus, and that's been our foundation for 10 years. So now we're adding on all these new brands and all these new avenues, and because of Tarek's celebrity and because of who Tarek El Moussa is, it's when I was scaling, when in my former marketing world, I didn't have that luxury, right? I had to pitch my brand. I had to pitch, oh, you'll make this amount of money if you do this and that and the other. But Tarek has a luxury, I would say, with the brand to be able to scale, and it's magical. It's something where he makes a phone call and things just explode. So that's been very helpful for me. It opens a lot of doors from marketing and advertising that I'm able to develop relationships and much faster because of that. So that really helps in our growth for sure.
Absolutely. What do you think one of the biggest mistakes is that you've made so far in real estate that you can share for us that we can learn from?
Selling too soon, not holding out on the market, and jumping ship too soon. That's been my personal hurdles.
You're saying on Dispo, like just taking the first offer?
Well, yeah, as far as Dispo is concerned.
Now, you guys have some of the biggest assignment fees on the Investor Lift network right now. Yeah. I mean, your average assignment fee is north of 50 for sure.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about Dispo and like how you do that?
So you've got to make sure you have the right content, right, to show the property. If you just have one street view image, you're not going to get a lot of bites. You got to have the right bait to be able to get those buyers to really visualize the property, especially if they're not on the ground. But yeah, you can't take the first offer or first few offers that come along. And I'm not saying you have to wait 2 weeks to get a great offer. With Investor Lift, we'll put up a property at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and by 5 o'clock in the afternoon, we have multiple offers. A couple of them are full price. By the next morning, we have multiple full price offers, and then we ask for best and final. So typically, things are gone within 24 hours. Now, that does come down to different price points. Here in Southern California, if we have a house that's 400 or 450,000, that's gonna go really fast. If we're up over the million marker, it's a much smaller buyer pool, and it does take a couple more days. You just have to get it in front of the right amount of people, and you'll get a bidding war. You'll get a bunch of offers, and you go with the best one from there. But I would say definitely make sure that you're hitting up your buyers and cultivating a buyers list and vetting your buyers and staying in contact with your buyers, making sure they're still in the game, making sure they haven't changed their buy box. We had a buyer that his buy box was always between 600 and 700. He'd pretty much buy anything as long as it fit within there. And then he started, kind of backing off and ghosting us. To come to find out, he switched his buying parameters to 400 to 500. And so everything we were sending over to him that we thought fit didn't fit. And that was, our bad, because we should have been in better contact with that one buyer to know that he switched his buyer box, because there was properties a couple of weeks ago that we could have sent to him and had another full price offer and had another bidding war. So You've got to stay in contact with your buyers when you're growing and cultivating your buyers list.
Awesome. Do you have any like secret tips or techniques that you guys use on Dispo that you could share?
Not anything that's like reinventing the wheel, to be honest with you. Again, systems and processes. We have a core group of local buyers and investors here in Southern California that we've worked with for years and years. But that's not always going to butter your bread, and they're not going to buy every single thing you send to them. So you have to have some sort of a software, some way to blast out to them. You've got to text people. You got to use something like Lead Sherpa and blast out to everybody that fits that buying criteria. Use InvestorLip, use God mode, right? Like we do. And you can really target the right buyers, and you're getting the right properties in front of the right people. And that makes all the difference in the world. I mean, imagine if you spent 10 days sending out 1,000 text messages to 10,000 people, and they're all in the wrong buy box. You just wasted so much time and money. Whereas if you knew that these 6 guys buy this, you're over and done before lunch. So there's really not a secret to it. It's just, here again, just mapping it out, having a strategy, having a plan, and seeing it through.
100%. Sounds like a lot of this is just, you got to this business is not that complicated. You just got to focus on the fundamentals and really nail the fundamentals down.
I agree.
Now, I've seen a lot of businesses that are stuck around like $200,000 a month in revenue, and they're really struggling to get beyond that. What do you think? What's your advice for companies that are kind of plateaued in that like $100,000 to $200,000 a month range?
I always say constantly changing is constantly staying ahead of the competition. I even have a sign on my wall over here that says never ending improvement. If you look at okay, I'm good, I'm making a good amount of money, and that's all fine and well. That could be for some, and that's great. If you've reached a plateau and you're great with that, then by all means, congratulations. But if you're somebody like me, where there's never a ceiling, I'm not one that ever gets content. With things, I'm constantly trying to tweak and get better and learn. I always say the day I stop learning is the day I'm dead. I'm constantly learning, and I have a hunger for that. I'm constantly talking to everybody from the masterminder, everybody in all of these investor groups. I'm constantly saying, hey, I'd love to be involved in anything you have going on. I'd love to assist. And they always say, well, what's your hurdle right now? And I'll tell them, and then they tell me what their hurdles are. And we always share information. So learning and growing is really, a really key part of it. But if you hit a plateau and you're comfortable with it, great. If you want to move forward and you want to get better, study what's working and double down on that and chew the fat and get rid of what isn't working, and get good people, train them, and start building and growing. If you have 10 salespeople, 10 acquisitions people, and that's okay, but you want to get to more money per month, you've got to tack on more soldiers to win that elevated war, if that makes sense. So just constantly growing, constantly coming up with procedures and processes and systems that better your game and get you stronger. And technology is constantly evolving. So there's always going to be another company that betters another company, copies what they did and just made it better. And there's nothing wrong with leaving one company and moving to another that just has better toys and tools. It's what's going to make you money. So you have to stay up on trends, on tech trends and data trends, and constantly utilizing the best and the fastest. If you want to be the best and the fastest, you're only as strong as your weakest link. So make sure you've got the best software.
Always level up. Now, anything different for guys that are just starting out? If someone's watching this, maybe they've done one deal. Is there any advice that you would give them that might be different? Or would your advice to them kind of be the same as the guys that are doing 200,000 a month?
It really depends. If you're a guy that is okay with doing one deal a month or even 4 deals a month, and that's where you want to be, then that's fantastic. And that is a great income stream for you. You probably have a full-time gig outside of that, because, if you're only doing a couple of assignments, depending on the market you're in, that's not necessarily going to, it's not going to build a mansion for you. If you want to have a large scale company and you want to grow, the best thing I could say is try and find a partner. Try and find somebody who can come in, and whether they cover a weakness that you have with a strength that they have, or maybe your weakness is finances and they have money, and they're your financial partner, and they enable you to go into marketing and PPC and advertising and get the right softwares and hire the right people. Well, then maybe that's the piece of your puzzle that you're missing. I mean, I used to strike up conversations with people rubbing elbows, having a drink at a bar somewhere, come to find out that they're just sitting on a bunch of money. They don't know what to do with it. And those people didn't make that money. Maybe it was inherited or it was a windfall or a lottery or who knows. But they don't know how to make money off of their money. And somebody who has the chops to make money but doesn't have the money to do it, that's a perfect marriage. So I would say find a partner and grow together.
100%, 100%. Guys, we're going to wrap things up in a second here. Before we do, Forrest, if people want to get in touch with you, what is the best way for them to reach you? Is it via email, Facebook? What do you prefer?
Yeah, you can drop me a line on Facebook. Facebook Messenger is a good way to get in contact with me if you're social. Otherwise, I'm always in front of my computer pretty much 12, 13 hours a day. So if you shoot me an email, I'll be able to get that and respond to you pretty quickly. So I'm always available, guys. My door is wide open, and I want to learn. I want to grow. I want to work with you, and let's do some deals together.
Awesome. Guys, this has been an incredible hour. Who out there has learned something from this? This has been absolutely extraordinary. So many golden nuggets. I think, to be honest, the one golden nugget that I got out of this that I think is more applicable to really scaling up than anything is if you want to do things big, you just got to keep things simple.
Yeah.
Right. You talk about like systems and processes and focusing on those marketing channels that like PPC that are easiest. So many people spread themselves so thin. They're doing bandit signs and TV and radio. They're trying to do everything. Like when you came in, you're tasked with going to $1 million a month. You looked at the marketing channels, and within, a week, you're like, okay, PPC, that's it. It's like ordering sushi, right? And you just crank that up from $800 a week to $3,000 to $5,000 a week. And where the results now generate over $1 million in assignment fees per month. So just really focusing on the basics, good people, good systems. There's no secret, guys. Like there's no guru out there that's going to give you some secret sauce that's going to automatically change everything. That being said, some of the things that are going to give you a big advantage, though, are going to be those systems, right? We're talking about that over and over and over again. You've talked about some of the ones you've used. So if you're just getting started and you're trying to get beyond a few deals a month, definitely focus on systems. If you're trying to hire people, bring them on, listen to the tips that Forrest gave about finding people and training them and doing what you got to do to get to those $1 million months. Forrest can do it. I think any of us can do it. Forrest can do it with almost no real estate background in 4 months. I think any of us could do it in a year or two, right?
It's a recipe that works for most industries as far as scaling and growing and sales and marketing. But it's a lot of fun, right? It's a lot of fun to grow. It's a lot of fun to see something, the fruits of your labor come to fruition. So that within itself is rewarding. Helping people is rewarding. Making money is rewarding. So it's a very rewarding industry that we're in, guys. So don't take that for granted. I think a lot of us had previous lives and previous gigs and 9 to 5s. And I know Josh was talking about that on the show a couple of weeks ago. And we have a great industry. We really do. And it's a good thing to grow with, and it's a good thing to build on. So, by all means. And Jerry Green says, focus. Yeah, just stay focused. Keep your eye on the prize and grow and just and build and constantly stay ahead of the competition. And, like my sign says, never-ending improvement. Right?
Never-ending improvement. There you go, guys. That's what this show's been all about. Forrest, before we wrap up, any final thoughts?
I just want to say thanks for having me on.
It's been great. And anytime you want to come back.
Tell Eliza that I'm sorry for monopolizing your time for so long. I just realized we've been running for 90 minutes. So
I love it. No, this is like the Joe Rogan podcast. There's no fixed end. We go as long as we need to.
Well, I definitely appreciate it, and thanks for the questions, guys. Again, if you come up with a question that didn't hit you while we're in this, feel free to shoot me an email. Hit me up on Facebook. Let me know how we can work together. Let me know any obstacles you have. I'd love to grow with you and learn with you and help you overcome anything get to new heights. And hopefully I'll learn something along the way too. And yeah, thanks for having me on, dude. This is
Awesome.
really
This has
cool.
been awesome. We're gonna have you back. I think I predict.
Don't
I
threaten
predict
me.
this summer you're gonna break 2 million. And then I also predict that within 3 years, you'll be the first investor of company to be doing 10 million a month in assignment fees. So
those are big aspirations, but I do love a challenge. So
hey, you get there, I'll buy you a Tesla Roadster.
oh wow, well hey,
There you
no,
go. There's some motivation. Get there in 3 years. Tesla Roadster on me.
well,
Awesome. Forrest, this has been great. Absolutely incredible, guys. Show some love in the comments if you've been watching this and got any value at all. Also, make sure to share it out to anyone else that you think might get some value from this. It's been absolutely incredible. If you have any other questions, post them below. I'm sure Forrest will be watching the comments and responding whenever he can, or reach out to him directly. Forrest, this has been absolutely incredible. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Thanks for listening.
Guys, thanks for joining us on the live show tonight. If you're on Facebook, make sure to join our Facebook group. It's facebook.com/dealmakernation. Tons of great content in that group, tons of great people. Make sure you're joining the community, join the network, and learning from other like-minded entrepreneurs. Also on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to our channel. You can